Alright, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel, or welcome in if you're new. In this video, we're going to be discussing HEX, the fact that we've hit 20 cents. So what happens now? Well, we'll look through the lens of a variety of models, including our LookIntoHex.com quantitative models, which you can find, first link in the description below at LookIntoHex.com. But let's go ahead and talk about, first of all, where we are now and where we could be headed in the coming weeks and months. So we've been covering this parallel channel in the videos for a few weeks now, saying, you know what, this parallel channel has held significance ever since November 20th of 2020, so last year, which puts us at almost the, what is that, like the 8-month mark for which this yellow uptrend parallel channel has held significance, in the sense that it's been support on occasions as well as resistance on separate occasions. And you see this play out multiple times. Absolutely textbook, right? And where are we now? Well, interestingly enough, not only did we hit it, we actually crossed above it and hit a high of 21.86 cents. And now we've come back down a little bit to currently sitting at around 16.5 cents. What I find interesting, again, is that not only did we hit the top of the channel, but we actually blasted right through it and seem to be wanting to try to hold it as support, which currently it's sitting at around 15 cents. Right, we've been calling for these targets for a while now, 12 to 24 cents. So our first target has been hit. Our second target, not so much, but 21.8 cents is pretty damn close if you ask me. But again, I do think that where we are now takes, I think you need to take a step back and look at the big picture of things, which is why we're going to zoom out in a second here. But just to kind of finish off this kind of TA side of things with this uptrend channel, let me get rid of these moving averages, just kind of clean it up a bit. Then I think something like this isn't out of the cards, and we talked about this, like December 31st of 2020, when we saw about a 2x bubble above this actual channel. And so the fact that it's holding here reminds me of this time over here where maybe, and I'm saying maybe, you see a nice 2x bubble above this channel, right, before maybe coming back down into the channel. So all I'm saying is, if it played out similar to over here, you can actually take a bars pattern to mimic this move back here and see what it would look like if it actually happened today. So if something like this were to happen, is what I'm talking about. Right, if we had a nice bubble up 2x above this channel to the 30-cent region, and then maybe, just maybe, right, coming back down into the channel, which would bring us back to the 12-cent region at the absolute lowest. So I could see something like this happening, sure. Maybe the dip is not as significant because we've seen these dips kind of get smaller over time. We measured them a while back, and something like a 30% dip wouldn't be out of the cards. So maybe this dips us down to maybe the top of the channel, and when we continue on. So it's hard to speculate from here what's going to happen. So many moves ahead. We kind of have to take things one step at a time and interpret each move as it comes to us, and then say, okay, well, this is what could happen next. Currently, I think from a short-term perspective, things look good. I think we could still move up, personally, I really do. And I'll explain why in a second, because this is more of a short-term analysis. But again, if you go to LookIntoHex.com, your go-to site for the best quantitative charts on HEX in the world, then we'll start off with our quarterly ROI chart. And this pretty much just outlines, we have whole videos on this, right? I'll leave a link here. This pretty much outlines, if you had bought at the beginning of the quarter and sold at the end of the quarter, a simple strategy. I'm not advocating trading at all. All I'm saying is this could be significant for institutions or businesses who want to invest in HEX, who need to have, quarterly profit loss statements and whatnot. And the really amazing thing about HEX is that it has been profitable every single quarter, whether it's our lowest quarter of 24.7% gain or our highest quarter of 669% gain. Then it's always a positive quarter, historically speaking, for HEX. The best quarter of which has been this one, like I mentioned, which topped out at around 15x and found its the end of the quarter ROI being about half of that. So a little 50% dipperoo. But where we are now is this pink curve, Q3 of 2021. We just started it this month, right? So all of July, August, September is going to be this pink curve. And we're currently sitting at a 2x, 2.15x at that. That pretty much says, well, currently HEX is undergoing its best performing quarter in its history, right? There's no quarter prior to this one where HEX was sitting at a 2.15 ROI. Even on the best quarter to date, right? It took it until like day 18 of the quarter. So we're about 2 days ahead of the best quarter of HEX to date. And I remember mentioning in a video, like if HEX price had pumped 2x from the beginning of the quarter before day 38, generally speaking, that means it's going to be a good quarter. So it's looking like we could continue on. And I talked about this in the previous video that if HEX were to mimic exactly what it did on its best performing quarter, and this isn't keeping in mind that it's overperforming, let's just say it did exactly the same peak rate, then we would be looking at still a 7x from here, putting us at the dollar level potentially next month. So if we look at our fair value, then we pretty much just came right up to our fair value. Not only that, we actually went slightly above it and are approaching our median line, right? This mean line, which currently sits at around, the high 19s, so about 19-20 cents. So we hit it, and you can see that we're currently kind of testing these regions now, which is really, really cool because we've had this plotted for a while now, and to see it finally come back into it is pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. So continuing on to some other charts, our HEX versus ETH chart looks fantastic. We are on track, pretty much. We're on track to continue on higher, I think. I mean, this looks good. And again, this gives Ether kind of an unfair advantage on this chart because this offsets HEX so that it doesn't show the fact that it's actually performing much faster. If you scroll up to the actual HEX versus ETH ROI from launch, you see that we are outperforming absolutely insane. This ratio is currently at 33x. This is actually the farthest extended we've ever been in terms of this HEX ROI from this ETH ROI from launch. So that's really, really cool. Again, it's harder to tell kind of the characteristic shape following, right? It's easier. What am I trying to say here? It's easier to kind of compare these characteristic shapes, in my opinion, on this 4-year cycle sort of model, because again, on this one, all you can really say is, well, HEX is outperforming like a mofo. Like, there's not much to say about this chart. It's kind of hard to gather insight from it other than the fact that HEX is dominating, right? When you look at something like this, you get the insight that HEX is dominating, and it could continue on, what is this, another 4x in the coming months. But see, this is a little more of a bearish scenario where you'd assume a long-ass bullish formation like this ascending triangle that took hundreds of days for Ether to play out back in the day. But as we know, HEX is performing much, much faster and much harder, so I wouldn't be surprised if it subscribed more so something like this, right? Comparing HEX to itself rather than to something like Ether or Bitcoin. These are slowly becoming hard to really gather insight from, because if HEX just keeps tearing and running away from these charts, there's not much you can gather from them other than the fact that HEX is dominating. I'll say that again, like all-time highs on the HEX BTC Performance Index, absolutely tearing, absolutely tearing. So this gives me confidence in the fact that we are in potentially the highest appreciating asset in history. Our heat maps gives us a nice little update now that I've updated them on the website, and that is the fact the dots are kind of running away from the previous ones, leaving a bigger gap than usual. It reminds me of this time over here where this weekly dot just printed with these gaps between them because price was moving so fast. So similar structure here, right? The fact that the colors are very similar, and again, these colors correspond to our risk metric, which a few videos ago we said, you know what, we have a hidden bullish divergence, and we've seen this before, right? We saw it back here, and after that, price ran up. It ran up over 10x. So the fact that we saw a nice bullish hidden divergence here tells me, well, price could run up 10x. It could go into the 70, 80, 90 cent region. And someone brought up a really good point the other day that some of these levels, you guys, are base entry price for a lot of people. There's a lot of media coverage that's just barely coming into HEX. That obviously it's been long overdue. It's been long overdue. But the media coverage is finally coming in from big names in crypto who were just absolutely either ignoring or, you know, slandering, throwing unjust accusations at what HEX was. And so with that, you get these new people. And these new people don't have that history bias of, you know what, their initial entry cost is somewhere over here. And so they don't feel the mad gains yet because they just barely got in. And so if you have a majority of people kind of entering this new wave of people entering, then that's how you create new floors. That's how you create new floors. Right? You have these people with their entry cost anywhere from 10 to 20 cents, maybe lower, and then they want their 100x just like these guys wanted their 100x and got, right? Just like these guys wanted their 100x and got. And so these guys are going to want their 100x. And that's usually how prices continue forming new floors and we just keep going higher. So this hidden bullish divergence is playing out pretty nicely. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this continue to move up following our fractal. And we're going to end the video talking about this, which is the fractal that could be playing out, leading us into these higher levels such as pink. So the pink level hits $1 in August, early August, about August 7th. And have we hit green yet? So close, so close. I mean, green is currently sitting at around the 19-cent level, and we did wick above 19 cents, right? We had hourly wicks to like 20, 21, 22 cents. And so we did cross green for an hour, like a few moments. But since, you know, on these models, we only take average daily data, so daily candles effectively, then we didn't touch green yet. You can see here, so close. Maybe the next video is called Code Green. We are literally just so close. Just like, what is that, like a 4% move, 5% move away? Yeah, just a few more percentage points and we'll be having a Code Green, which if you guys haven't been updated yet, then we have included the Ether extension from Rainbow underlaid on this chart to give you kind of an idea of where HEX could be headed. And look at that, lo and behold, we have pretty interesting convergence here in the sense that price is following what Ether did pretty similarly. And what came next was obviously a absolute tear into the pink region. If HEX, you know, copied and emulated the time frame it took for these prices to be reached, then that would correspond to about $2 in October. But it can do it faster, it might take longer. And yeah, we'll see. But these predictions of $1 by end of year, $2 by end of year, they aren't seeming as crazy anymore. They really aren't. On our Fibonacci space model, we almost reached green as well. Remember, these green levels are the same across all these models, green specifically. So we almost reached green. And if price is to do something similar to what Ether did back here, maybe we see consolidation between orange and yellow before actually moving up to blue. Little dip, up to purple, tiny dip, and then up to pink. So it seems like it had a tiny little kind of break, a little stop at each of these levels, in between each of these levels, finding each one of those resistance along the way. So in that case, if it took it until October, then we would see little resistance around like, you know, 27 cents, and back down to 22, up to 50-ish, down to 30-ish, and then finally up into the dollar plus region. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. We've seen coins like Matic, ADA go from just a couple pennies to a couple dollars. And like I was saying earlier, the cost basis for new people is in the 15, maybe 20 cent range, maybe lower, right? Maybe a couple cents if you got lucky. And then that kind of leads to these continued bubbles. So that's pretty much all I have for you in this video. Super bullish. I think things look fantastic. I don't know if it's time to call the top because it's just hard to get in the way of momentum. It's like getting in the way of a moving train, you don't want to bet against the trend. Generally speaking, right? Never financial advice on this channel, just kind of laying it out there as I see it. But yeah, I guess we can talk about pulse chain a little bit. And I generally tend to like to make separate videos on HEX and pulse chain because I know they're not necessarily the same demographics. Obviously, there's some overlap, but I obviously want to bring in, you know, people from each side and kind of do that cross pollination. So we're gonna keep it HEX mainly this video, but obviously the pulse chain launch is a positive externality for this pump, and so we'll actually talk a little bit more about those models that I was showing you guys, about the bonding curves, and actually included the volume curve data, which I hadn't in the previous video, so excuse that. But yeah, I'll be dropping a video, if not today, most definitely tomorrow. Right, been making a habit since so much is going on to, you know, make a little more videos for you guys. Just kind of keep your head, you know, in a level place. Just stay relaxed and stick to your plan and not get too wild out there. So yeah, congrats on the new all-time highs. Congrats on 20 cents. So what comes next is potentially even bigger. We'll see. Obviously, I'm in it here for the long term, as you guys probably know, as you guys probably are as well. So we'll continue to keep you updated on all of these models. Check them out yourself. You know, if you don't want to wait for my videos, check them out yourself on LookIntoHex.com. Updated every single day. I'll leave a thumbs up if you like this kind of content. Appreciate you watching. Leave your thoughts below. Subscribe if you haven't by now. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.